In the 7th year of my marriage to Ethan, we ran into each other at an upscale restaurant. He was having a candlelit dinner with Miranda, and I was there to accompany a client. Our eyes met for a single second. By unspoken agreement, we both looked away at the same time, pretending nothing had happened. After the dinner ended, Ethan was waiting outside in his car. I thanked him politely and, of my own accord, got into the back seat. Halfway through the drive, he suddenly pulled over. Luna, today I ended things with her completely. I was momentarily speechless and could only offer an awkward smile. In truth, whether it was over or not had nothing to do with me anymore. I had stopped loving him a long time ago. Chapter 1. The sticker that belonged to Miranda was still on the passenger seat. In the hazy night, those once brazen declarations now looked oddly faded, almost yellowed with time. Perhaps my reaction was too calm, because Ethan frowned slightly in the rearview mirror. In a few days I'm planning to go back and see my parents. When would you be free? I froze for a moment and refused instinctively. Mom and Dad haven't been well lately. You'd better not go. Since getting together with Miranda, he had never gone home again. By now, it had been 4 years. As soon as the words left my mouth, Ethan's expression darkened. My whole body tensed. I was about to explain when I heard him sigh. All right. I'll listen to you. With that, he started the car again. Outside, the rain fell harder and harder, beating against the windows. The atmosphere inside the car grew cold. The entire drive passed in silence. Staring at the curtain of rain outside, I suddenly felt dazed. It felt like it had been a very long time since we'd coexisted this peacefully. The last time we'd seen each other, we'd been enemies to the death. And now, we could sit in the same car, calm and detached. When the car entered the residential complex, I snapped back to my senses. Ethan had driven us back to the neighborhood where we used to live. I wanted to explain, but when I met his gaze, I swallowed my words. Inside the elevator, Ethan suddenly spoke. These past few years, have you been well? I smiled politely, distant and restrained. Pretty well. He seemed dissatisfied with that answer. His eyes fixed on me, as if trying to see through me. Uncomfortable under his gaze, I stared at the elevator numbers, silently urging them to change faster. When the doors opened, Ethan seemed to say something. But it was drowned out by the elevator chime, and I didn't hear it. When Ethan unlocked the door with his fingerprint, he paused noticeably. Then a faint smile appeared on his face. The next second, that smile froze. The apartment had been unoccupied for a long time. The air was thick with a nauseating smell of mold and rust, so strong it made my eyes sting. Ethan reached out to turn on the light and pulled his hand back, coated in dust. I took a tissue from my bag and handed it to him. Guess the electricity bill hasn't been paid in a long time. My tone was as calm as if I were haggling over vegetables at a market. He froze for a moment and looked up at me. You don't live here anymore? I nodded and paid the electricity bill on my phone. Before long, the power came back on. The lights flickered to life, revealing the room clearly. After 4 years, everything looked exactly the same as when I had left. Our wedding photos had been torn apart and scattered across the floor. Dark stains clustered on the sofa and the bed, reminders of everything that had happened here. They were the marks left behind from my suicide attempt during the worst period of my depression. In the 7th year of my marriage to Ethan, I had returned once again to a former nightmare. And yet, it wasn't as painful as I had imagined. Everything felt strangely calm. The word calm had been absent from Ethan and me for a very long time. He lowered his head, staring at the scene in silence. I waited for a while, but when he showed no reaction, I decided to leave first. If you're staying here tonight, you can contact property management. They can help you find a cleaner. As I passed by him, Ethan grabbed my wrist. Where do you live now? I'll take you. My body stiffened. I shook off his hand as if electrocuted and stepped back, widening the distance between us. No need. Thank you. The ride I'd ordered was already waiting downstairs. I fled the scene quickly. When I got home, my father and brother were already asleep. My mother was still waiting for me. Why are you back so late today? Did something happen on the way? The food's gone cold. I'll heat it up. Go take a shower. The moment the hot water touched my skin, the heaviness of the entire day vanished. The scars on my wrists throbbed faintly. It had always been like this over the years. Whenever it rained, the scars would itch and ache. When I came out of the bathroom, my mother's expression looked strained. As I turned around, an unexpected figure appeared in the living room. Ethan had followed me home. My father and brother also came out of their rooms. Their health hadn't been good since 4 years ago, and they usually went to bed early. Ethan stood in the living room, still carrying that unmistakable air of authority. "Lucas," he said calmly, "long time no see." Chapter 2. Ethan and my brother used to be the closest of friends. The three of us were children who had come out of the mountains together. From elementary school to high school, we were inseparable. From a very young age, Ethan showed a level of maturity far beyond his peers. Many years later, I would suddenly realize, perhaps Ethan's intelligence came from that woman who had been sold deep into the mountains. His mother drowned herself in the river 3 years after giving birth to him. When they found her body, it was bruised all over, completely naked. I was 1 year younger than Ethan and my brother. In my sophomore year of high school, both of them were admitted to university. It should have been good news, but to my parents, it was an overwhelming burden. I ran to find Ethan and saw his admission letter torn to shreds. "A mud-legged nobody thinks he can turn into a dragon. As long as I'm alive, you'll never make anything of yourself." Ethan knelt on the ground, beaten without making a sound. I waited for a long time. It wasn't until the moon rose that the noise finally stopped. He was still kneeling there, moonlight spilling over him, coating him in a hazy glow. Ethan was painfully handsome. I asked him, "Do you want to go to college?" He said yes. Driven by some inexplicable impulse, I went home and told my parents, "I won't go." I wasn't smart. My grades had always hovered below average. One promising child in the family was enough. My parents beat me badly, then held their heads and cried, saying they were useless. The house was in chaos for a long time. In the end, I withdrew from school. My brother, Ethan, and I went to the provincial capital together. They went to college. I went to work. With my limited education, I could only find the most basic jobs. I lived in a basement, ate plain steamed buns with water. I worked 3 jobs a day, gritting my teeth to earn their tuition. But I had hope in my heart. No matter how hard life was, it felt worth it. When Ethan received his first scholarship, he took me out for Western food. On the way back, it started snowing. He held my hand as snow piled up on our heads. "I'll make sure you live the best life." There was no romantic confession, but to me, it was the most beautiful sentence in the world. Ethan was smart. Very soon, I didn't have to work that hard anymore. We rented a new place, and Ethan moved out of the dorm. He studied law, and during his internship, he was constantly picked on. A kind senior once advised him, "In this field, without connections, you won't last long." Ethan didn't believe it. He charged straight ahead anyway. A rich second-generation kid in the provincial capital caused serious trouble. Prison was basically guaranteed. But somehow, Ethan managed to pull him out of jail. From that moment on, his name officially entered the circle. After leaving the courthouse, the victim charged at him with a knife. Before Ethan could even react, I instinctively stepped in front of him. By the time he came back to his senses, I was already lying in a pool of blood. For the first time, the always calm and composed Ethan was filled with panic and despair. His words came out disjointed and incoherent. "I'm begging you. Don't leave me." The hospital issued critical condition notices again and again. Later, my brother told me Ethan had knelt on the ground, clutching the doctor's leg, kowtowing non-stop. He asked my brother, "What should I do? What do I do without Luna?" Ethan knelt there the entire night. When I woke up, his tears poured out like they cost nothing. After that, he had nightmares every night. He would wake up holding me tightly, crying uncontrollably. Thank goodness you're still here." Back then, his love for me was real. But later, his hatred for me was real too. Chapter 3. Facing Ethan once again, my brother's eyes were still filled with hatred. "What do you want now? If you dare touch Luna again, then at worst our whole family will die with you." Dad's chest heaved violently as he coughed non-stop. "My daughter never wronged you. I'm begging you, please, let her go." As he spoke, he was about to kneel before Ethan. My eyes burned. I stepped forward, wanting to help him up. Ethan moved faster than I did. I didn't come to do anything, he said. I just want to make it up to her. His voice was as cold and distant as ever. Mom's eyes were red as she stood in front of me. There's no need. Staying away from her is already the best compensation you can give. She barely survived. Don't come back at her again. Seeing my parents' emotions spiral, I hurriedly pushed Ethan toward the door. Just go. We don't want anything. We just want things to be like before. In the struggle, the sleeve of my pajamas was accidentally pulled up, revealing that horrifying scar. Ethan froze when he saw it, and in that instant, I shoved him outside. Don't come back again. I'm begging you. After I shut the door, my parents finally let out a breath of relief. My brother unclenched his fists. Don't be afraid. This time, your brother will protect you no matter what. Warmth surged in my chest and my eyes filled with tears. It had always been like this. No matter what happened, my brother would step in front of me without hesitation. When I took the knife for Ethan, he blamed himself for not protecting me. Even when Ethan cheated, my brother thought it was his own fault. After I blocked that knife for Ethan, my health was never quite the same. After we got married, I spent most of my time recuperating at home. Ethan, meanwhile, smoothly entered a top-tier law firm. He left me with more and more of his back. He always said, Luna, I want to give you something better. The best things in this world, I want to give them all to you. And he did. But he also left me covered in scars. In the 3rd year of our marriage, he cheated. The other woman was his client, a victim in a human trafficking case. Normally, a case like that wouldn't have been important enough for Ethan to take on. But perhaps it reminded him of his mother. So he handled it personally, waiving all legal fees. The first time I saw Miranda, her eyes were hollow and she rejected anyone's touch. Except Ethan's. She probably feels that I can help her, so she let her guard down around me, Ethan said, trying to reassure me. Looking at the girl covered in bruises, I suddenly remembered Ethan's mother had looked the same before she died. I knew he was trying to make up for something. So I didn't interfere with any of his decisions. For a long time after that, no matter how late Miranda called, Ethan would rush to her side immediately. She's mentally unstable. When I'm there, she's much better. It's also good for the case. I felt uncomfortable. But when I saw those hollow eyes filled with despair, my heart softened anyway. Miranda's condition gradually improved. When she was clear-headed, she would hug me and cry uncontrollably. Sister, if it weren't for you, I really would have died. She knew she had troubled Ethan for a long time and sincerely apologized to me. When the case is over and I'm better, I'll move to Dolly. She talked about her future, and the despair I saw when we first met was gone from her eyes. And Ethan didn't disappoint her. He successfully sent the traffickers to prison. Miranda said goodbye to me, saying her wish had been fulfilled and that she would soon leave for Dolly. I went to the airport to see her off. But outside the airport, I saw the two of them embracing and kissing. Heavy snow fell, covering them from head to toe. I felt frozen to the bone. In that snowstorm, I was the only one who went mad. Ethan held her tightly in his arms, shielding her face from view. He stood there calmly, letting me scream and break down as everyone watched. Luna, the one who was wrong was me. You don't need to vent your anger on her. He escorted her into the car and drove away, leaving me collapsed in the snow, like an abandoned stray dog. Chapter 4. After being driven away once, Ethan did not give up. He went to my company. Facing such a famous, high-profile lawyer, my boss was visibly nervous. Ethan, however, moved with ease and headed straight for me. I'm here to talk business. What time do you get off work? I'll wait and leave with you. My coworker's eyes widened. I lowered my head, looking at the documents in my hands, my tone calm and flat. I take the subway. My refusal meant nothing to Ethan. In the break room, a colleague quietly asked what my relationship with Ethan was. I poured myself a cup of coffee and smiled as I explained. The legal spouse on the marriage certificate. Before my colleague could react, I added, but his wife isn't me. That explanation was enough for anyone to understand the situation. Yet the moment the words left my mouth, I saw my coworkers avert their gazes. I turned around. Ethan was standing there, looking at me with a complicated expression. On the way back, he kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror. I turned my head to look out the window and remained silent the entire time. I didn't think there was anything wrong with what I'd said. Once a man's heart changes, he never truly comes back. If he does, it's only because he has no better option. Back then, after having been loved, I couldn't accept the reality that Ethan no longer loved me. I went home and smashed our wedding photos, tore apart everything related to Ethan. I photographed the house now completely ruined and sent the pictures to him. Ethan came to see me with Miranda. "I can give you the biggest house and the best life," he said. "I can also guarantee that Miranda will never appear in front of you again." Miranda sat in front of me, her face full of guilt. I couldn't control my feelings. "I'm the one who wronged you." That year happened to be the 3rd year of my marriage to Ethan. No matter how much I made a scene, no matter how I threatened him, I couldn't shake his resolve. Just like when he had decided to personally take on Miranda's case. He moved out and officially got together with Miranda. I stayed alone in the empty house, sleepless night after night, writing long, endless messages. But they sank into silence, no replies at all. Cold violence can truly drive anyone to death. When no response came, the last bit of hope in my heart shattered. I even thought, forget it, I'd just fed all these years of effort to the dogs. But when I went to him with the divorce papers, Ethan refused without a second thought. "I won't divorce you. A stable marriage is also one of the things clients consider. You can find someone else. I won't interfere." But I wasn't like him. I couldn't do something so despicable. I couldn't divorce, and I couldn't go back to the past. The inescapable heartache and emptiness made my entire body ache. When the pain reached its peak, I saw the fruit knife on the table. Before my consciousness faded, Ethan finally came back. When I woke up in the hospital, it was Miranda at my bedside. "Sister, I know you're heartbroken, but your body belongs to you. If you keep going like this, it's hard on him too." The timidity that once filled her eyes was gone, replaced by blatant pride and triumph. Using what little strength I had, I slapped her hard across the face. I hurled everything within reach at her. Ethan appeared just in time and blocked one blow. "Look at yourself. What's the difference between you and a madwoman?" They stood in front of me, driving me insane, and then said I looked like a lunatic. With nowhere to release the hatred boiling inside me, I decided to take revenge. I paid a private investigator to gather every piece of evidence of his affair. I organized all the proof, preparing to send it to his law firm and post it online, and then Ethan came back. Chapter 5. What followed was a call from my parents. My mother was crying on the phone, saying my brother had been set up and lost 10 million. They said either he pays it back or he goes to prison. How are we supposed to repay that much money? "Ethan, aren't you a lawyer? Can't you think of a way? If Lucas goes to jail, what are we supposed to do, your father and I?" My parents didn't know about Ethan's affair. They placed all their hopes on him. Ethan put the call on speaker so I could hear every word clearly. "Mom, this is a bit complicated. I'll talk it over with Luna later. You and Dad don't worry for now." He hung up and looked at me quietly. "Luna, you're a smart person. Don't make things difficult for everyone." Ethan had known for a long time that I wanted revenge. Everything that happened was a trap he had laid for my brother. With his intelligence and methods, pulling this off was effortless for him. He knew I would never abandon my family. So I gave in. Right in front of him, I deleted every piece of evidence, leaving nothing behind. Ethan left, satisfied. The next day, my brother was released. Ethan personally came with me to pick him up. On the way back, he told me to accompany him to a banquet. "This client is very important, and he values family background the most. Luna, don't act foolish. You wouldn't be able to bear the consequences." I followed all of his arrangements numbly. Like a puppet on strings, I accompanied him through the world of power and prestige. Ethan's deliberately intimate gestures made waves of nausea rise again and again. The moment he leaned toward me, my vision went black and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Ethan was sitting nearby, his expression dark and unreadable. I was pregnant. When I learned the news, it felt like a thunderbolt had struck me. There was a time when I believed I would never become a mother in this lifetime. Yet when our relationship had completely fallen apart, this child came to me. More than anyone, Ethan longed to have a child of his own. He had always despised the blood running through his veins, and yet he had perfectly inherited all the selfishness and darkness of that man. So when he found out I was pregnant, his first reaction was to keep the child. I didn't want to. He then brought up my parents. Our parents are getting old. You wouldn't want them to worry about you anymore, would you? My parents were already elderly, and all I could do was compromise again and again. When I was 5 months pregnant, Ethan moved back in. He said he wanted to personally take care of me and the baby. That decision triggered a sense of crisis in Miranda. She went to find my parents. She told them everything about her relationship with Ethan without holding anything back. She even revealed the truth about how Ethan had set my brother up back then. At last, my parents learned that something had gone terribly wrong between Ethan and me. When I arrived, my parents were sitting on the couch, their eyes red. My mother hugged me and cried so hard she couldn't speak. "My child, you've suffered so much." My brother sat on the floor with his head in his hands, silent. Miranda was kneeling on the ground, begging me to give Ethan back to her. Without him, I really can't go on living. In that instant, the urge to kill flashed through my mind. Like a madwoman, I slapped her hard across the face. When Ethan arrived, he happened to see me with bloodshot eyes, sitting on top of Miranda, my hands locked around her throat. He shoved me away without hesitation and looked coldly at me and my family. "Everything you have today was given to you by me. Don't be ungrateful. You all know that if I want to, you have no room to resist." With that, he took Miranda into his arms and left. The man's retreating figure was ruthless and resolute. My stomach struck the corner of the table, sending a dull ache through me. But it was nothing compared to the pain in my heart. My brother immediately stood up, eyes red, and chased after them. My heart sank. I rushed after him, but I was still too late. By the time I received news again, everything was already set in stone. Chapter 6. By the time my parents and I reached the hospital, Ethan's arm was already in a cast. His face was covered in abrasions and bruises. When he saw me, the hatred in his eyes was so intense it made my heart pound. "Luna, I will make him die." After learning the truth, my brother was consumed by the desire to avenge me. All that rage turned into pressure on the accelerator, sending his car straight at Ethan and Miranda's. In that moment, he truly wanted Ethan dead. But the outcome did not go the way he wished. At the instant of impact, Ethan instinctively jerked the steering wheel. Miranda was critically injured. Ethan suffered only minor scrapes. My brother was sent straight into the ICU. My parents aged overnight, their hair turning white as they begged Ethan to show mercy. He was utterly unmoved. I knelt on the floor with my swollen belly, bowing again and again. "As long as you let him go, I'll do anything. Consider it a debt I owe you. Ethan, I'm begging you." I don't know how long I knelt there, or how many times I struck my head against the floor. I only felt my body growing colder and colder until I began to tremble uncontrollably. It wasn't until I heard a doctor cry out behind me that I realized the ground beneath me was already soaked in blood. The baby was gone. It was a fully formed boy. But in the end, he never opened his eyes to see this world. Only then did Ethan's attitude finally soften. "Luna, between us, it's over. We're even." He brought Miranda's letter of forgiveness. He paid my brother's medical expenses in full in one lump sum. And then he disappeared completely from my world. He would not divorce me, but he would never come back either. After the miscarriage, my world collapsed into ruins, leaving nothing worth holding on to. My body gave out entirely. I lay in bed, barely clinging to life. It turns out that when a person's heart and spirit are gravely wounded, the mind becomes a blur. Even now, my memories of that period are hazy. I can't even remember whether, at the peak of the pain, I ever said the words, "I can't go on living." In my rare moments of clarity, I saw how deeply sunken my mother's eyes had become. I think I probably did say it. My brother was still unconscious. I was half dead myself. My mother cried day after day. To care for me, she didn't dare leave the house even once. At night, she was so afraid of sleeping too deeply that she tied a rope around both her wrist and mine. My father, with his aging body, went out to take on odd jobs. Two people who should have been enjoying their later years were still exhausting themselves for my brother and me. My parents took me to one doctor after another. Everyone said I was suffering from severe depression, difficult to cure. An illness of the heart is the hardest to heal. Those 4 words bent my parents' backs. My mother stayed by my side day and night, never leaving me for a moment. She pushed me outside to sit in the sun. She racked her brain trying to cook food I might like. My father came home exhausted every day after work. Yet he would still come sit beside me and talk for a while. No forced emotion. No dramatic speeches. Just the small, ordinary chatter of daily life. The doctor once said that the warmth and bustle of everyday living might be able to heal a wounded heart. I didn't want to disappoint them. So I forced myself to stay alert and talk with them. My parents could tell. They didn't want to pressure me. Each day they would come in to check on me, then quietly leave. At night, I could hear them crying. I also knew they blamed themselves for being powerless. One night, I woke up from a nightmare. My mind went completely blank. In the moonlight, I saw my mother curled up at the foot of my bed, still keeping watch over me. I thought I should pull myself together. But I could never escape the shadow of the past. I cried again and again, gathered my courage again and again, and failed every time. I felt that I truly couldn't hold on anymore. That night, I quietly untied the rope and climbed onto the balcony. The night wind rocked my body, unsteady. Pain screamed through every part of me. As long as I jumped, everything would finally be over. One foot had already stepped out. But I still wanted to look at my mother one last time. When I turned around, I saw her standing behind me, holding a bowl of steaming food. Child, eat first before you go. No one worries about whether you've gone hungry, unless they are your mother. In the end, I survived. Chapter 7. Ethan's relentless persistence finally exhausted my patience. Downstairs at the company, wrapped in my coat, I asked him calmly. Ethan, do you want us to go back to how things were before? His eyes lit up and he nodded without hesitation. I do. I smiled, then took a step back. But I don't. Ethan, you didn't turn back then. And from now on, neither will I. That night, when I came down from the balcony, my mother held me, her whole body trembling. I still had my family. I still had people who loved me. My life shouldn't be so easily thrown away for the sake of one man. I ate that bowl of food and fell asleep in my mother's arms. The pain was still there, but the urge to die was gone. That bowl of food that night became a lifeline in a vast, raging sea. Slowly, I began to regain hope in life. I started eating again. I took the initiative to go outside. I could sit quietly and finish reading an entire book. Half a year later, my brother finally woke up. Though his body was no longer what it once had been. My parents' eyes reddened. As long as he's alive, that's enough. As long as our family is together, nothing else matters. We rented a new place. After a year of recovery, my brother found a job again. And I, with strength slowly returning to my body, picked up my textbooks once more. Giving up my studies back then had always been a thorn in my parents' hearts. So when I decided to take the self-taught college entrance exam, they supported me unconditionally. I had been away from school for too long. Even the way I held a pen felt unfamiliar. Without systematic training, studying was extremely difficult. But fortunately, I still had my brother. Whenever I felt discouraged, he would pat my head and comfort me with a smile. Why are you afraid? Even if you don't do well, it doesn't matter. You've got your brother. Life slowly began to improve. Watching my self-study exam scores rise higher and higher on the computer screen, the emptiness in my heart was gradually filled. Effort is always rewarded. At 25, I was admitted to university. The moment I stepped onto campus, my life finally turned a new page. I began to study seriously, to live seriously. In my 3rd year, I found a decent internship. During the most painful period, I thought I wouldn't make it through. But now I hadn't just survived, I was living well. My parents no longer had to run around exhausted. And my past with Ethan was slowly sealed away by time. Everything was moving in a good direction. I thought we would never meet again in this lifetime. But I didn't expect to run into him once more. Nor did I expect that we would still be entangled even now. Ethan, you could say I died once for you. Wouldn't it be better if we both remained decent people? When he appeared again downstairs at my company, I finally couldn't help rejecting him outright. The man driving in front said nothing. In the heavy silence, I heard him let out a deep sigh. Before leaving, I heard him say, "I'm sorry, Luna. What happened back then was all my fault. Can we start over?" Start over? That question was one I had asked countless times in the past. I begged him not to leave me. I begged him to spare my brother. I begged him not to hurt my parents. The scene before me felt painfully familiar, yet our positions had completely reversed. Although we hadn't had any contact these past few years, I still heard bits and pieces about Ethan. A heavyweight in the legal world, both his career and private life were frequent topics of conversation. Not long after we separated, Ethan was riding high. Who didn't know the top figure in the legal circle, with success in career, family, and love all at once? A virtuous wife at home, quiet and undemanding. A confidant outside, gentle and attentive. What man wouldn't envy such a life? Yet in just 3 years, he was already talking about regret. I didn't know whether his regret was real. But soon enough, I found out how much it was worth. When Miranda came looking for me, I was on the balcony watering the flowers I had planted for my mother. She was more refined than she had been 3 years ago, dressed head to toe in the latest seasonal pieces. But beneath that carefully constructed elegance, the sharpness in her eyes was impossible to hide. She stubbornly pressed the doorbell, clearly intending not to leave if the door stayed closed. Left with no choice, I opened the door. Chapter 8. She tossed a bank card at me. Inside was 5 million. Even though you're not divorced yet, I'm the one people outside call Ethan's wife. I didn't pursue your brother's responsibility back then only out of respect for him. You can cling to that marriage certificate if you want, but I hope you take the money and disappear forever. Luna, winners take all and losers fade away. Back then, you lost. Miranda lifted her chin proudly, yet the anxiety and restlessness in her tone were impossible to hide. I replied calmly, "If you're looking for Ethan, you should contact him directly." At the mention of Ethan, a crack finally appeared on her face. "Don't think I don't know what you're plotting. You want him to come back to you, don't you? I'm telling you, dream on. He'll belong to me for the rest of his life. You will never get back to this side again." Her words confirmed my suspicion. Ethan's so-called clean break was probably just a one-sided cold withdrawal toward Miranda. She didn't want the relationship to end, which was why she had rushed here so impatiently. Looking at the emotionally agitated woman in front of me, I suddenly felt a bit of pity. Once, all it took was a single glance from her, a single tear, for Ethan to abandon me. Now, she could only resort to this shrew-like display to assert her claim. Thinking it through, it almost made sense. If Ethan could abandon me for her, then naturally, he could abandon her for another woman as well. It was nothing more than a repeating cycle. After realizing this, the hatred I once felt toward Miranda faded. We were both once the same. The difference was that I had already walked out. I'm not interested in whatever is going on between you two. I moved to close the door. Miranda suddenly thrust her hand against it, her meticulously manicured nails nearly snapping. "Luna, don't get smug. Do you really think Ethan wants to come back to you? He's just momentarily intrigued by your pretentious purity. Once he gets bored, you'll be thrown back where you started, just like before." Her words were like poison-coated needles. 3 years ago, they would have pierced me to the bone. But now, I only found them noisy. "Are you done?" I asked. "If you are, you can leave." My indifference completely enraged her. She suddenly lost control. "Stop pretending to be noble. Back then, he chose me over you and your child." She screamed without restraint, trying to wound me with the most vicious words she could find. That child was indeed a wound in my heart that would never fully heal. But at this moment, when she mentioned the child who never got the chance to live, what I felt most was relief. Thankfully, he left early. He didn't have to face the twisted relationship between his parents. Perhaps that was mercy. Maybe it was because I remained calm, or maybe she realized her tantrum was useless. The rage on Miranda's face suddenly drained away, replaced by mockery and malice. "Do you know what Ethan said back then when you were lying in the hospital like a dog? He said you were disgusting, like a madwoman." It felt as if an ice pick stabbed into my chest, cold but not unbearably painful. She tore open the ugliest parts of my past, Yet what was exposed wasn't a bleeding wound but a hardened scar that had long since healed. I looked past her, at the man approaching from behind. Miranda seemed to sense it. The moment she turned around, the expression on her face collapsed. She hurriedly clung to Ethan's arm, as if trying to prove something. "Ethan, why did you come to pick me up yourself?" "I was just catching up with my sister, let's go home." Ethan looked at her coldly and, without hesitation, pried her hand away. "I think I made myself very clear that night. Miranda, don't be ungrateful. You know very well, if I want to, you have no room to resist." The same threat as back then. Heartless. Absolute. Leaving no escape. A single sentence was enough to make all of one's schemes fall silent. Chapter 9. Miranda stared at him in disbelief, as if she were seeing this man for the first time. "How can you treat me like this? I did all of this for you." Ethan let out a cold laugh, his tone laced with undisguised mockery and weariness. "Miranda, while I still have some patience left, you'd better know when to stop and not push your luck. You know what I'm capable of. Playing dumb won't do you any favors." His words pinned her in place. Her face shifted from pale white to a sickly green. "Fine, Ethan, you're ruthless." She shot me a venomous look, then fixed her gaze on him. "Don't regret this." With her heels wobbling, she stumbled into the elevator. The hallway finally fell silent. I stood by the door, like a complete outsider to the entire scene. Ethan rubbed his temples in exhaustion and turned to me, his voice carrying an apologetic note. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she'd come here. I promise this will be the last time. What happened back then, I didn't." I no longer needed any explanation from him. I even smiled and interrupted him calmly. "Sir, whatever is going on between you and your wife has nothing to do with me. I don't want to know about it and I don't want to be involved. And please ask both yourself and your wife not to disturb me again. But if you ever decide to get a divorce, feel free to contact me." My indifference left a trace of confusion on Ethan's face. That feeling, like punching cotton, finally made him lose control. He raised a hand to block the door, looking at me with a complicated expression. "I know you don't believe me right now, but I'm serious. I've had the house redecorated. It's exactly the same as before. I'll also take care of all the trouble, including her. Just give me another chance." I didn't speak. I simply looked at him quietly. Sometimes, silence is far more effective than any weapon. In that wordless standoff, Ethan went from composed to flustered. And in the end, he fled. See? Even he knew that what he was saying sounded like a joke. I watched him in silence. Ethan understood my refusal and left in dejection. After more than 20 years together, I knew all too well that he was not someone who would give up until he got what he wanted. Soon, his figure began appearing downstairs at my company. No matter how late I worked, I could always see him standing quietly by his car, waiting. Using his connections, Ethan helped my brother get a promotion and a raise. He arranged top-tier medical checkups for my father at the best hospital. He even lowered himself to accompany my mother to the wet market to buy groceries. No matter how coldly we treated him, he persisted without regard. I know I was terribly wrong. Now I just want to make some amends. My parents were worn down by all of it and eventually stopped going out altogether. I avoided him too, entering and leaving work through the underground parking garage. In the end, it was my brother who stepped forward. He went to Ethan's law firm. In his hands were the surveillance videos and my journals from the time I was battling depression. "If you really want to make it up to Luna, then divorce her. We don't want anything else. Just agree to the divorce. Luna nearly lost her life because of you, Ethan. If you still have a conscience." Ethan replayed those videos again and again. It was impossible to read the emotions in his eyes. Even so, he continued waiting for me downstairs. "If you won't come, then I'll come find you." The same threat as always. I didn't want him to keep forcing his way into my life. After thinking it over for a long time, I finally agreed. Ethan drove the same car as before. He drove slowly, horns blaring incessantly behind us. Eventually, we stopped in front of the restaurant where we'd gone for Western food for the first time. "I haven't eaten yet. Eat something with me." I got out of the car in silence. Watched him order in silence. He ordered the same set meal we'd had back then. I remained quiet. My gaze shifted from the dishes to his face. What was this supposed to be? A reminder not to forget the past? I should have said something. But when the words reached my lips, they dissolved into nothing more than a sigh. Chapter 10. A flicker of panic surfaced in Ethan's eyes. What do you want to say? Luna, you can hate me if you want, just talk to me. He was desperate to get a response from me. Desperate to catch even the faintest trace of emotion related to him. But there was none. It wasn't anger, nor was it silent treatment. It was simply that I no longer had any desire to speak to him. The light in the man's eyes gradually dimmed. He lowered his head and quietly ate the processed steak in front of him. Lawyer Ethan? Is that really you? A voice broke the oppressive silence between us. Ethan looked up at the man in confusion. Don't you remember me? I finally found you. The man grinned broadly. Suddenly, he reached out, grabbed the knife and fork from the table, and lunged at Ethan. It all happened too fast, even I froze in place. Ethan instinctively twisted to the side, narrowly avoiding a fatal blow. But his wrist was still injured. Back then you defended that piece of trash and drove my daughter to her death. You also sent my wife to prison, she's still there to this day. God has eyes. He finally let me find you today. You destroyed my family. Even if it costs me my life, I'll make you pay. The man turned out to be the victim's family member from Ethan's very first case. Because of Ethan, the victim had been pushed to death. The one who stabbed me back then was the victim's mother. She had also been sent to prison by Ethan and had never been released. For all these years, their family had lived entirely in hatred of Ethan. The man waved the knife and fork wildly, completely unhinged. I immediately retreated behind the crowd to avoid being hurt. Ethan noticed my movement. His gaze paused. There was hurt in it and also understanding. Mall security arrived quickly, subdued the man, and took him to the police station. After instructing his assistant to handle the aftermath, Ethan drove me home. By the time we were on the road, his wrist had stopped bleeding. I heard his low voice. Back then, did you feel the same as I do now? Did it hurt this much? I froze and looked at him in confusion. The man suddenly gave a self-mocking laugh. You used to be terrified of pain. Even a scraped knee would leave you in tears. I lowered my head and glanced at my own wrist. The scar was still there. On rainy days, it still throbbed faintly. After the car stopped, he grabbed my sleeve, revealing the wound on his wrist, already beginning to scab. Look. We're the same now. Can you give me another chance? Even if you hate me. Even if you want revenge. Anything is fine. How could it be the same? How could all the wounds I'd suffered ever be offset by a single scar? I took a deep breath, looked at him calmly and said, I don't hate you. Because the love I gave you was real and I respect myself for that. You won't get retribution either. You'll just never meet someone who loves you the way I did. Because heaven won't give you a second chance to meet another me. Ethan, look forward. Winter crept in suddenly. The wind swept the leaves from the trees. And in the man's eyes, there was nothing left but regret. Chapter 11. After that night, once everything was finally said, Ethan never appeared again. My brother also asked friends to investigate and learned the whole story. After getting together with Ethan, Miranda had paraded herself everywhere as his wife. Relying on that title, countless people rushed to flatter her. For a time, she was riding high. But she knew better than anyone how those days had been bought. That was why unease and fear had always been buried deep inside her. Miranda believed that once she defeated me, she could finally rest easy. Yet for all these years, she had never been able to persuade Ethan to divorce me. The anxiety in her heart only grew. She became suspicious and paranoid. She began to interfere aggressively in Ethan's work, forbidding him from taking cases involving female clients. Behind his back, she harassed female partners at the law firm, stirring up trouble everywhere under Ethan's name. Just because one female lawyer at the firm couldn't help mocking her for being obsessed with stealing other people's men, Miranda drove her car straight into her, sending her into intensive care. She thought Ethan would protect her again just like he had countless times before. But this time, to everyone's surprise, Ethan refused. Over the years, he had offended many people for Miranda's sake. His own reputation had been dragged into the mud as well. The other party declared that they already had all the evidence and were determined to send her to prison. No matter how desperately Miranda cried and begged, all she received was Ethan's cold rejection. For a long time after that, Miranda came looking for me everywhere. She seemed truly desperate. She tried to push all the blame onto me. She hired people to post online, cursing me under my company building, calling me a homewrecker who destroyed other people's families. She even copied my methods and hired a private investigator, trying to take revenge on Ethan and me. But every one of her schemes collapsed the moment Ethan personally posted his marriage certificate. And by then, I was already able to face everything calmly. Online, I spoke openly and peacefully about my past with Ethan, including those dark depressive years. We were happy once. We just ended up walking in different directions. I said it calmly. But netizens cried their eyes out. And then poured all their anger onto Ethan. In order to contain the fallout, the law firm had no choice but to terminate Ethan's partner status. His law license was revoked as well. The voices of praise from the past gradually turned into ridicule and mockery. From that moment on, Ethan could no longer appear in this profession. He completely lost the career he had always been so proud of. My colleagues and superiors at the company knew exactly what kind of person I was. They publicly supported me and stood firmly by my side. Miranda thought that once Ethan lost everything, he would return to her. Reality slapped her hard in the face. Ethan used the same old tricks again, saddling her with enormous debt. He threatened her. If she continued to pester him, he would make sure she died without even a place to be buried. Miranda couldn't accept it. No matter how she cried or begged, the man remained unmoved. In the end, nearly insane, Miranda grabbed a knife and dragged me up to the rooftop of the central tower. Chapter 12. Miranda wanted to drag me down with her. The wind on the rooftop was fierce, strong enough to make anyone sway. The police had already laid out safety cushions downstairs. The rooftop itself was surrounded by officers. Ethan and my parents were notified as well. This is all because of you. You ruined my entire life. The winter wind was bitterly cold. But unlike that night 3 years ago, my heart was no longer filled with despair. I looked at Miranda quietly. Her face slowly overlapped with the image of her the first time I met her. Desperate. Hollow. She had always been broken. Ethan had only made her seem normal. And it was also because of Ethan that she returned to what she once was. Miranda, do you remember what you once said to me? Her hysterical shouting suddenly stopped and confusion filled her eyes. The strong wind tangled her hair as I gently helped her recall it. I want to go to Dolly. It's spring all year round there and the flowers bloom just right. Those fragments of former beauty gradually surfaced. Miranda suddenly laughed. I can't go back anymore. I'll never be able to go back. But I want to go. Sister, I want to go to Dolly. Why? I just wanted a fresh start. Yes. Why? She turned her head and looked at Ethan who was rushing toward us. I saw it clearly, in that instant. Her eyes were lucid. I heard her say, I'm sorry. She let go of me and charged at Ethan, frenziedly swinging the weapon in her hand. Then came a flurry of icy snowflakes and something warm splashed across my face. A gunshot rang out. Miranda collapsed into the snow. Her body twitched a few times before falling completely still. Ethan was rushed to the hospital. But he had been stabbed multiple times, several wounds hitting vital areas. The doctors were powerless. In the emergency room, he lay on the bed, trying to lift his hand toward me but he couldn't raise it. Through the oxygen mask, he struggled to breathe. So this is how much it hurt back then. Ethan's eyes gradually lost focus, his breathing growing more and more labored. Luna. Luna. I stood by his side, watching him quietly, offering no response. As his consciousness slipped away, the last words he spoke were, Luna, don't forgive him, don't ever meet him again. Ethan thought too highly of himself. I don't hate him. I simply want to love myself properly. The word forgiveness is too light. Too light to erase everything that happened. After Ethan died, I didn't arrange a funeral for him. It was his assistant who came to handle the aftermath. In the end, all of Ethan's belongings were handed over to me. As his legal spouse, I inherited all of his assets. Enough for my family and me to live peacefully for the rest of our lives. That marriage certificate finally lost its meaning. The last chain that bound me disappeared along with Ethan. My life, at last, truly began again.